Chapter 6 of the leadership textbook is labeled Leadership and Influence. So the first thing that this chapter opens up with is credibility, the key to successful influence. The chapter starts off by labeling that credibility is the foundation for successful influence, but also that is the foundation of leadership. And then it goes down to describe that highly credible public speakers are more likely to convince audience to accept their arguments. And then in addition to this, successful counselors first earn trust of their clients, salespeople are more productive if they sell themselves, and then finally, editorials are more persuasive if they come from highly credible newspapers. So the next thing that it leads into from credibility was the dimensions and challenges of credibility itself. So it opens up with the definition of competence, which is defined as knowledge of the topic at hand, intelligence, expertise, skill, or good judgment. And then to branch off of that, it says a leader must provide the skills that the group needs at a particular time. Next, there's trustworthiness, otherwise known as character, which is another name for honesty and consistency. Honesty is rated as the most important leader quality. And then it wraps it up with the last challenge and dimension of dynamism, which that refers to perceptions of a source's confidence, activity, and assertiveness. Dynamic leaders communicate confidence in their visions for the future. So the next thing that the chapter really goes into is building your credibility. You have to have your good self-presentation behaviors. Also, you build credibility based off your language. But then you also build off credibility based off your physical appearance and other nonverbal behaviors. Some of those gestures include sustained eye contact. You use gestures to add emphasis to the points you make. You maintain a relaxed, open posture. And you also pay attention to your voice. The other steps that you use to build credibility are, 1, discover yourself. You affirm shared values. You develop capacity, you serve a purpose, and you also sustain hope. So the next thing that the chapter leads into off of that are the managerial influence tactics. And there's a bunch of these which go from rational persuasion, apprising, inspirational appeals, consolation, collaboration, ingratitude, personal appeals, exchange, collation tactics, legitimating tactics, and then finally, pressure. So the chapter then goes into the concept of upward dissent, and that's expressing disagreement of dissent upon to management and supervisors. There's a couple tactics that go in from that, and the first one being direct factual appeal. Direct factual appeal is where supporting complaints with facts from physical evidence. Next, there's repetition. Repetition is repeatedly drawing attention to topic over a period of time. Next, there's the solution presentation, which is offering a solution drawing attention to the problem. And then that leads into circumvention, which is dissenting to someone above the immediate supervisor. And then finally, wrapping up these tactics is threatening resignation, which is threatening to resign to get management to act. The next sub thing that the chapter goes into is developing argumentative competence. So the first thing is stating the controversy in propositional form. That means productive arguments begin with a clear understanding of the argumentative situation. Next one is inventing arguments, which is carefully examination of the proposition is the key to developing a case either for or against the proposal. Next, we have presenting and defending your position, which is inductive, deductive, causal, and analogical reasoning. Next, there's attacking others' positions, which is based on identifying weaknesses in the evidence and reasoning of the other party. And then finally, the last one is managing interpersonal relations, which that's a way to keep the argument from deteriorating to verbal aggression. And then finally, the next thing that the chapter leads into is creating a cooperative climate or environment. So there's a couple things that it tells you to do that. The first one being open and honest communication. The next is an emphasis on similarities. And then you also have to have trusting and friendly attitudes. There has to be a mutual deal on problem solving, and then a reduction of conflicting interests in the surrounding. So next you find out that it goes into negotiation as joint problem solving. And that pretty much means that you have to separate the people from the problem. In this case, you focus on interests, not positions. And then you invent options for mutual gain. And then finally, you insist on objective criteria. So the last thing in the chapter really last subtitle I kind of felt was important was resisting influence, which is defending against the power of mental shortcuts. So that breaks it down into about 7 things. First one is reciprocation, which is kind of a give and take concept, which encourages individuals to cooperate with each other. The next one is commitment and consistency, which consistency prevents feelings of dissonance while reducing the need to think carefully about an issue after making up a choice. And then the next one is social proof, which is validation, which that kind of refers to deciding how to act based on what others are doing. And then next is liking, and that's as targets of influence, we are swayed by people we like. That's just kind of a pretty common thing. Next, there's authority, and that is the higher the perceived status of the persuader, the more likely it is that targets will comply. Next, we have scarcity, which creates the belief that opportunities in short supply are better than the common ones. And finally, we have unity, which is considering someone to be a part of the group makes us much more open to their influence. And that is chapter 6.